Hello, everybody. This is Teen Title Talk with Erin
and Courtney.
This is the podcast
where two librarians discuss two YA books every 2 weeks.
Today we'll be talking about the books of Voices, The Final Hours of Joan of Arc by David Elliott,
and White Rose by Kip Wilson.
But before we do that, we need to get in touch with our teen selves, so let's dive into the jar of teen angst. All right, first thing just says scariest moment. What was your scariest moment, Courtney?
I mean, I think
everything was scary.
Teenagerhood is filled with scariest moments, especially when you're a person who's as scared as the world as I am.
Oh, yeah.
Or was, anyway. I do recall, and this kind of ties into one of the other questions about your license, one of the scarier things I did was learn how to drive a car.
Okay,
I found it terrifying.
Yeah.
And I remember a specific night when my dad was, like, helping me learn how to drive. So I'm driving, he's sitting next to me.
Yes.
And it was a dark night. And in my mind, it's raining. It may not have been, but my memory tells me it was raining.
It was like noon on a sunny day.
No, it was definitely nighttime, but I think it was also raining. And all I was doing was driving on the road for the first time, like a busy road. And I remember pulling onto the road and my hands were shaking.
Oh, God.
And I immediately started crying. As soon as the first car came by us with the light, the headlights and my face, and I felt I started to drive off the side of the road because I felt I was too close to the middle of the road, and I started crying. And my dad was like, "This isn't what's supposed to happen. This is not how you drive." So we made it we didn't have blocks. It was just a long street with other streets off of it. But I'll say blocks.
You were just on the block?
I was we went from my house about a mile away. And we landed about a mile away. And I
switched. You had to
I pulled into a parking lot and had a complete meltdown.
There's a lot of pressure.
Things got better after that, but that was my first
I've ridden
foray.
with you. I know you don't usually cry all the way.
Oh my gosh, it was
totally
awful.
Fine.
It was terrible.
Oh my gosh, that's scary.
I came back from it, but I was so scared. There was no real reason to be scared except that it was just a new thing, and also you're driving this giant machine.
I know.
Everyone else is driving these giant machines.
That's true.
They're coming at you.
That's true.
And it's only their own will.
I know. If
that
you
is
think
keeping
about
them
and you
from hitting you.
Yes. Was it a standard or an automatic?
Oh, God, it was an automatic.
Of course.
Of course. Pete later tried to teach me standard, and I had
a similar experience.
Almost. It was a few days of
also
trying to figure it out, and then I was why am I doing this?
Do you have a standard?
No. Oh, I just thought it'd be cool.
I see.
Cool to know how to do it.
Yeah, I guess.
And I was this is why they made automatic cars.
Sure.
So people don't have to learn this ridiculous thing.
I'm with you.
I got mad about it, and so I never.
You got in a fight, and it was over.
Yeah, then he proposed.
Oh, that's sweet. He's like, she's the girl.
This is the moment. Oh, God. Anyway, what about you?
Since I had a hard time thinking of one. There's so many.
I know.
Heart-pounding moments, but I'm thinking we'll stick with the car situation. So since you did that, we have a theme now. So I was driving. It was also dark. It was at night, and I was driving home. It was very late, probably the middle of the night, I'd say. No other cars were on the road whatsoever. And I was not going slow. I was going quite fast.
This reminds me of another scary moment. Continue.
So I was just going along. I was like, okay, I got to just get to Moortown Corners, and I'll just, I'll get home and go to sleep. So I hit something. I did not see it. It was all I hear. It was poof, and this thing hit my foot really hard. And I pulled over, got out. It was the back hook thing of a tow truck.
What? Yeah. I thought you were going to be and it was
a bear.
Exactly.
No, I had to wrestle it. No. No, it was just a part that had fallen off a tow truck. It was this huge metal piece, and I pulled it off to the side because,
did it
evidence.
Destroy your car?
Yeah, totaled it.
My God.
They were if that had come through the floor, you'd been dead. I'm surprised you're alive right now.
Holy moly.
Yeah, so I called my folks, and they came down, and the police came, and everybody came.
Oh, Oh, wow.
But I didn't slam the brakes on, so no one could tell how fast I'd been going. So I was just like, I just didn't see it. I don't know. I think I was going the speed limit. But no, I should have been driving slower. I would have probably seen it and swerved around it if I had been.
It was dark.
It was. And my lights on my car were not great. But that kind of brings us to the next. Let's go to this question. When did you get your license and did you get a car? So you drove, you did it. When did you?
I did it.
Were you 16 or did you?
I was 16. I was let's see, I started driving when I was 15 and a half because that's when you're allowed to start driving.
Right.
And so that's probably how old I was when that moment occurred, my scary,
You were
sad.
like, let's do this, 15.
Yep. But I enrolled in driver's ed when I was 16, and then I got it. My birthday's in December. I got it in June, so I was 16 and a half when I got my license.
Did you have to parallel park for your exam?
No.
I didn't either.
What is with that? Because that is a very useful skill. We did it like one lesson was learning to parallel park. So we did it a little bit, not required for the test.
Well, our
we had to
rule
back
was
into a parking space for our test.
Oh, really? We didn't have to do that. Our rule was if you have to parallel park if there's a car to parallel park against, but this was like Vermont, rural Vermont, so if there's not one there, you don't have to do it. Mm-hmm. So I didn't have to do it.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. Did you get a car right away? Or did you
So
use
my dad used this as an opportunity for himself to get a new car. So I bought his car from him.
Got it.
And he got a new car. And I was fine.
That seems good. I'm sure he gave you a discount.
He did.
A pretty low rate.
I think I paid him $1,000 for it, which
That's
is
pretty good, Courtney.
a lot less than he would have gotten for getting a trade-in.
Right.
So that was nice of him.
That is sweet. He's your dad, though.
He is my dad. It wasn't that great of a car. It was a Mazda 626. It was maroon, so it was like a sedan.
Yeah.
And you know what? I loved it. I had bumper stickers all over it.
I can see it now.
I put like Hello Kitty fuzzy steering wheel cover.
I love it.
And I loved my little car. I had a SpongeBob, it was like a giant stuffed SpongeBob that lived in the back seat.
What?
In case anyone wanted to
Cuddle
with it?
SpongeBob?
I don't know.
Sure.
I don't know. I didn't actually have that many passengers, so I don't know what like world I was living in where I was going to have a whole car full of people.
It was a dream, and I love that dream.
It was.
You're like, I'm going to make this comfortable for everyone.
Yes, and I had my little CD player that was like dangerously perched on top of the.
What?
Well, because it wasn't like integrated with the car.
Yeah, I think I had a cassette player.
I had mine had a cassette. So what you could do is you would buy these little cassette things
stick
with the
it in, and
wire,
it goes out to the CD,
and then it goes out to the Discman.
I think I have
so I
that
had
too.
like a little Discman that would just be like perched on the thing, and like if I took a turn too fast, it would go whoosh and go to one side of the car.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, I have pretty much the same story. I feel like I got my license around 16, and then I had a ruby red car too. It was a little Ford Escort though, and I named it Ruby, obviously.
Naturally.
And I got that car because I needed to drive my little sisters around to their things. So it was one less thing for my parents to do.
That was nice.
And I did. I drove them all around. I drove them to school. Was there a big to-do about parking at your school? Like your parking spot?
No. So you had to get a parking parking pass or a permit or whatever. But then it was just wherever. Like certain cliques would sometimes park in certain areas because there was an upper and a lower parking lot.
I actually had a parking spot.
But no, we didn't have that. If you were late to school, you had to park very far away.
So you're just walking. You're walking all the way.
You're hustling. You're running across the parking lot as the first bell is ringing.
Yeah. Our school is not that big, so running across the parking lot would be like very short distance from the soccer field. Okay, this one we're going to go fast on this one. When you looked into your future, did you have hope or dread? That's pretty easy. Right? We can answer that in
maybe.
one word.
Did I have hope or dread? I think I had hope. I think I felt like things are gonna be good.
Right.
I'm smart.
I think people get stuck in high school and they're like, this will never change, or I live this. Maybe they think everything's great anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I had a fine time in high school, and I think I had hope that like college was going to be good. I was nervous.
Yeah, me too.
But I don't think I was filled with dread.
Yeah, me neither. I'm with you. I'm like eternally optimistic. I'm like, yeah, it'll be fine. But it is uncomfortable. Like going to college is like, oh God, this transition's happening. But you just go through it and then you're fine. Just like driving the car.
Right.
It's all that kind of feelings.
Yep.
And you just keep going.
And then I had dread upon graduating college.
Okay. Like, what am I gonna? I actually had a similar dread. I was like, "What? I got to start being an adult now."
Right.
So I immediately applied to my MFA so that I could avoid that.
That's exactly
that
what
adulting thing.
That's what happened. So I graduated from college, and then I was filled with dread and spent a year doing a job that
you were just like, why?
I didn't like at all. And I didn't, because I just needed money.
Yeah.
And then I went back to school because I was like, no. I need
something else now.
Hopeful wonderfulness that is academia.
I mean, I don't know. It is kind of a dreamy place to be in, I think.
It is. Lots of people feel lots of ideas.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Let's talk about books.
Yep.
What did you read? You read The White Rose. Tell us about it.
Okay. Let me tell you about it. Some listeners may be somewhat familiar with the story because it is based on a true person. Her name was Sophie Scholl. I think I first heard about her on like one of those Facebook stories that you sometimes see about like famous and interesting people from the past.
Sure.
So she was a young German woman who grew up just before and during World War II. She was totally convinced that Hitler was evil.
Right.
Like, was not charmed by him at all.
She didn't even question
And she was really courageous. She printed and distributed anti-Nazi pamphlets, leaflets, and, like, would put them places for people to find. Cool. And it was extremely dangerous.
No kidding.
So Kip Wilson's take on the story is that it's told in verse, which I think really added to the tone, and it kept a lot of sort of dramatic tension because you know how the story is going to end.
Right.
It's easy to find out how that story ends.
Of course, yeah.
Because it's a real story. So how are you going to keep that tension? The verse does a really nice job.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, similarly, I read Voices, The Final Hours of Joan of Arc, and it's in verse. And, of course, Joan is this person who hears from the saints that she is destined to save France. And so she goes into battle and first leading and not doing much combat, and then fighting and getting wounded, but miraculously being fine. And then she is tried. And I feel like everybody knows she was burned at the stake, right?
Right. That's how she became a saint.
So, So these are the final hours. So you're hearing through these different viewpoints, some of her past, but a lot of the trial and where she is now, and the encroaching flames we know are imminent.
Oh, so she's on the stake while this is happening?
Kind of.
Oh, boy.
I mean, not on the stake, but I feel like she's going toward the stake the whole time. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that and how it's conveyed.
So barbaric.
I know, awful, right? So yeah, she was tried for hearsay and wearing men's clothing and witchcraft. And so she was burned for that. So it's really cool. I'm excited to talk about it. But let's talk about yours first.
Okay.
So our books are both about kick-ass girls who made great sacrifices, it sounds like. There's a lot of parallels between them. I haven't heard as much about Sophie Scholl as I have about Joan of Arc, but she seems awesome. Did you know anything about her besides that one Facebook post before reading the book? Or what did you learn?
I knew virtually nothing about her. I think I had just heard her name and I like the word leaflets. And that was it. That was all I knew.
Yeah.
If I did learn about her in high school, I don't remember it. I wish they would teach about her in high school because I think it would be one of those stories that really sticks with you, especially now that we seem to have lots of people who, well, not only are many Holocaust survivors no longer alive, I mean, they just would be very elderly now.
Right.
And so as those like living people no longer exist, just the memory of it sort of fades.
Sure.
So I think stories like this can keep it really powerful and alive. I already knew that there were like kind-hearted Germans who would hide their Jewish friends in their closets, under their beds, in secret, little nooks that they made. But I guess you hear more about stories like that than you do about written resistance.
Right.
I guess, and the power of the written word. I mean...
And how that's distributed and what that does to...
It's very powerful and it's very lasting. Like,
interesting.
A pamphlet that says, the truth of what's really going on...
Right.
...can outlive somebody.
Right.
And so... distributing those are pretty dangerous. Even just having one in your possession is dangerous.
Right.
So in a way, she's sort of putting lots of people in danger in the sense that this wound up in my mailbox. I don't know how. I don't know who put it here. I don't know.
But she's giving information.
But she's giving information. And there are people who agree with her, but are also really scared of dying.
It's a bold move.
Whatever. So, she and her family, well, just her brother, really, and his friends use early duplicating machines, which are kind of like manual photocopiers, to make thousands and thousands of leaflets. And eventually they make a giant stack of them and just bring them to university and
throw them off the roof?
Yes, push them off a banister on the third floor.
Okay.
And they just rained leaflets.
That's very cinematic.
And they get caught.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So,
Courtney.
I mean, there's even a special investigator whose mission is to find the members of the White Rose Resistance.
Gosh, okay.
So once that happens and the janitor catches them, that guy's like, whoa.
Oh, God. Okay.
Got you now.
So, that leads into my next. This book seems like it would have a lot of tension since it takes place during the Holocaust.
Yes.
But were there any scenes that stood out that had you at the edge of your seat? And did you worry about the characters more because this was based on a true story?
I was worried about everyone constantly.
So that almost amplifies the tension in itself. When you know where they're going or
Yes. So there are times when you hear just her voice. Mm-hmm. There are times when you see a letter that she wrote to her boyfriend. Her boyfriend was a soldier, Fritz, and he gets sent to Russia.
Okay.
And that does not end well for the Germans. It's like a bloodbath in Russia.
Right.
So she's really worried about him, even though he's pretty firmly, I wouldn't say he's Nazi sympathetic, but he certainly has a love for his country and he feels like he's doing the right thing by being a soldier and defending Germany's interests.
Okay.
And so they kind of are on opposite ends of the spectrum, but she's not afraid to tell him how she thinks because she trusts that he loves her enough to protect her.
But did you trust him?
I did not. But it turns out he actually is a kind of a good guy. But anyway, I think even if you do know the ending, I think the author does succeed at building that tension and keeping you on the edge of your seat. Just how she writes. And Sophie is so likable. Mm-hmm. You want to be her. You want to be the person who would do something.
Okay, of course.
In the face of these.
It's nice to get into those shoes.
Yes. I think not a lot of us could be her.
Right.
Because she's so selfless. But I don't know. She just wants the whole thing to be over.
Okay.
And knowing that it's all real makes it really painful. And Wilson does not pull any punches. She allows it all to unfold as it unfolded. And it's hard to pick one scene, but I actually have 5 little bookmarks.
Nice.
For moments that I thought were just really good. But if I'm thinking about plot and not just really good bits of verse, there's a part where the White Rose Resistance gets enough money to buy their duplicating machine, the second one.
Yeah.
So they can have way more copies, and they have to be really careful because
They're undercover.
Everyone, yes,
like,
everyone.
Who's
even
involved?
buying these would just make them super suspicious.
Right.
Like she buys more stamps than usual one time, and the person at the post office like calls the Gestapo.
Oh my
and it's like, there's someone buying more stamps than
That's
usual.
scary. Okay.
So people are like amped up.
Yes.
So they have to hope that the guy that they're buying this machine from is not secretly undercover.
Right.
And that all the people he's working with to get the machine are not secretly undercover. And it turns out there is a weak link in the chain.
Oh, God.
And
of course there is.
They give him the money. He gets the machine. And then he has to dump it in the river so that he won't be killed.
Oh, God.
And then there's no evidence.
Okay.
So,
Good. I'm glad he dumped it in the river.
I know, but it's also awful because there goes all their like hard-earned money. It's not easy to make.
Yeah, no, of course not.
And all their dreams for the second machine. It's yes.
That's a major blow.
It was a major blow. It was really heartbreaking.
So can you give us a taste of let's talk about like just the tone and the sound of this. This is a novel in verse. Give us a taste of someone.
All right, I'm going to take you to page 80.
Okay.
It's called, well, which one did I want to read? No, I said 80. All right. So this is called Fathers and Sons.
Okay.
It's a letter to Fritz, September 1940. Dear Fritz, I'm happy to share what I think about the German Volk. A soldier's oath to his Volk, to his Führer, is like the unconditional love of a son to his family. Even if a father hurts someone, his son backs him up. But he shouldn't. Justice is more important than family, than Volk, than Führer. Justice is more important than anything.
Oh, my God. Yeah, that's intense.
I know.
All right,
And that's
cool.
like, end of letter. Bye, Fritz. Enjoy Russia.
Oh, I'm glad I put it on my to-read list.
Yes. And then, hold on, wait. I have another one. Yeah, I'm taking too much time.
That's
but-
okay.
Okay. Let's see. This one's called Planning a Revolution.
Okay.
I can barely control my excitement about Hans's idea, but the others don't seem to agree. In broad daylight, Alex says, too risky. Willie frowns, shakes his head, his face blanching, pale as paper. Even though the Gestapo must be looking for us, I'm so proud of my brother. So glad someone else thinks as I do, that we can always do more, that we should always do more. I, for one, am ready to do more.
Oh, my gosh.
I know.
Cool.
I know. Okay.
So that brings us to the last question, which is School Library Journal calls this timely and relevant, yet it's historical fiction. What do you think they meant by that? What parallels does it have for people today?
I think the reason I put so many bookmarks in is because it really spoke to me as I live now. She asks loads of relevant rhetorical questions through Sophie.
Right.
Questions that I think are really meant to challenge today's reader.
Okay.
So like on page 74, Sophie asks in a letter to her boyfriend, how can we expect justice in this world if we're not prepared to sacrifice ourselves for what's right? And on page 75, she asks, the three of them are only a few drops in a sea of soldiers, soldiers who might die, soldiers who might have to kill. And for what? And so I think, I don't know, can we ask ourselves those questions now? I think we can.
I think so. Absolutely.
We live in a time of constant war, at least in the United States. Like, we're not seeing the war here, but we're certainly sending people over to fight multiple fronts. And I think I wonder, like, how many of us do question on a daily basis? Where are we? Where is the United States in the world?
Or do we just kind of
why
like,
are we
it's not
there?
in our imminent, right in front of us, so we can forget about that and just go about doing what we do.
Exactly. I'm not saying necessarily that those things are bad things for us to do, but I think it's always good to be questioning why we're doing the things we're doing and constantly questioning why we're doing the things we're doing. And just the idea of sacrificing ourselves for what's right, I think that's a really hard challenge, but I think there's a lot of stuff going on today that, I don't know, makes it worth pondering. So
Absolutely. Though it's not an easy thing to do.
no, not at all. But yeah.
So many things hang in the balance. But absolutely. All right. Let's talk about someone kind of similar. Let's talk about Joan.
Joan. All right. Joan of Arc. I know a little bit more about her than I did about Sophie Scholl.
Okay.
Because Joan of Arc's kind of, like, famous.
Yes.
So she believed God spoke to her and told her to fight. She wore armor.
Right.
That's pretty much all I know about her.
Okay.
I am missing a lot.
Yes.
So what am I missing? I think what I know is probably about what everyone else knows.
Right. That's how I started too. So I don't know a ton about Joan either, but from voices, she God spoke to her mostly through the saints, St. Michael, St. Catherine, St. Margaret, primarily, I think. They told her she had a destiny and that she would be France's salvation. So she set out to lead and then fight. She wasn't in combat a lot, but at one point she did get into combat later on, and she got shot with an arrow, and it was like through her neck, between her neck and shoulder.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, it's a miracle that she survived. So that raised her legendary status to a higher, level, because miracles. Mm-hmm. Also, in this rendition, and it felt really real to me, she really wasn't comfortable being a woman. She much preferred the tasks of men of the time, and she felt most comfortable around men. She felt too confined by all the duties of women, but I don't think that's a super strange narrative for the time. I feel like, Catherine Called Birdie had that theme too. However, I'm reading Zenobia July, so from that modern lens, I'm like, would she have transitioned if she was today? I don't know.
One wonders.
It's kind of interesting to think of her in that modern
I agree.
context. So, she was burned at the stake for hearsay, but for witchcraft, hearsay, and wearing men's clothing. They used her combat gear against her.
Oh, even though that's what helped her win and be be well liked. Right. Interesting.
So that's what I, think are some important things to know about Joan of Arc.
Thank you. That was the whirlwind. So I'm guessing that you already knew that she was killed before you read the book. But did that knowledge affect your reading? Do you think the author presumed you kind of know the story, or is the way that it is set up is right at the beginning? She's a dead woman walking.
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So obviously I didn't know she was killed. It doesn't matter though. Once you start this, I'll just show you the first page of voices, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the design of this book in a few minutes. It's freaking beautiful.
Whoa.
So there's the candle that lights her funeral fire. Her stake.
For those of you who cannot see, this words are in the shape of a flame.
Of a flame, yeah. That's the very beginning, and the candle is talking, and it's going to come and have her. So, yeah, right away she's going to die, and that did make me super tense throughout. I was like, oh my gosh. And then, throughout, the flames are rising on the page. Every time it's the flame's turn, it's going higher and higher. So you know that it's coming.
Wait, the flame is talking?
Yeah, flame talk. So multiple viewpoints talk, yeah.
Oh, are we going to get to that?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, so
actually,
next
right
question. Now. I am much more familiar with David Elliott's children's books.
Yes.
He has a number of picture books that are all delightful. We have On the Wing at home, and I love the way he writes poems.
Finn Throws a Fit, I think, was one that I really love.
Oh, yeah. Can you talk a little bit about his style here? I read the Hornbook review. They talk about the inanimate objects. And things that are given voices. Curious about how many voices there are. Does she get her own? And things like that.
Okay, and also, so Joan talks. She is all the way throughout. The candle, as I mentioned, does talk. Obviously, this is all fictionalized. What's neat also is that there are little snippets from the trial of condemnation and the trial of nullification, and those are real snippets. And then there's also things like, here's the fire. I roar, I roar, I roar, my darling, I roar, I soar, I soar, I soar. And then there's also things like the pitchfork that look like a pitchfork on the page. And then the St. Michael will talk. And St. Michael talks. I know. Here's the sword at Ferbois. I probably said that wrong. So a lot of different viewpoints come in to tell this whole story from these varying viewpoints. Wow. It's very cool. Here's the crown in a circle on both pages. It's very cool. Oh, Joan's probably my favorite because she's consistent and I liked being in her mind.
I think it's worth saying, too, that the cover art is...
Isn't it beautiful?
Absolutely
And there's
amazing.
gold. gold.
Yes, and
very
she
pretty.
just has this like fierceness. I can't believe she was only 19. Anyway,
I know.
Can you think of any modern people who are like Joan of Arc or whatever that might mean to you?
Yeah. Okay, that's a tricky one. So I was thinking, well, Joan probably would have been admitted at some point because of the talk about the angels and if she were here in America. Or maybe gotten some help earlier. I don't know. It's the whole voices thing is tricky. But I was thinking if we're talking about like young activists who have this sort of legendary status, I would say probably Malala. Because she was shot in the head, she survived miraculously, and she fights for girls' education globally. Like she has that sort of mythology behind her and that legend, and she's always doing this work for betterment of the world.
She is always doing this work. She's not afraid.
No, she's amazing.
These two amazing ladies.
That's who I would choose.
Love it. So, did any part stand out for you, or did you have any favorite images that you want to share?
Yeah. So, obviously, I was kind of talking about the design a little bit. The design is gorgeous and definitely worth taking a look at. There's just, like I said, the fire was probably my favorite element that was constantly throughout rising, and you see it fade even like down to the toward the coals, which is kind of interesting. I think the designer is pretty amazing of this book, but I also just really love Joan's voice. So I'm just going to give you a taste of Joan's voice. It's the beginning, so you're not going to, obviously, there's not really any spoilers, but here's Joan talking right off the bat. I've heard it said that when we die, the soul discards its useless shell, and our life will flash before our eyes. Is this a gift from heaven, or a jinx from deepest hell? Only the dying know, but what the dying know, the dying do not tell. What more the dying know, it seems I am about to learn. For when the sun is at its highest, a lusting torch will touch the pyre, the flames will rise, and I will burn. But I have always been a fire, with youth, with faith, with truth, and with desire. My name is Joan, but I am called the maid. My hands are bound behind me, the fire beneath me laid. Right? Doesn't it give you chills?
Yes, it actually did.
I know. It's really, so Joan's voice is very strong throughout, and you know she's dying, but there's this kind of boldness to her that I really love.
She's probably not fearless, but she sounds fearless.
In this, in this rendition, she really feels that way.
Or maybe she is fearless. If she feels like God's on her side, what has she to fear?
I think maybe, sure. Yeah. I guess since she's seeing angels, it's like, well, whatever. I'm just going to go to them.
Peace out.
Peace out. All right. So that's Voices. Check it out.
I really want to.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So
up next. Next up, we'll be reading mysteries. I'll be reading Zenobia July by Lisa Bunker.
And I will be reading Death Prefers Blondes by... I don't have the author's name off the top of my head, but the cover is really fun looking.
It does look fun. So that's it for us. Remember, if you get a chance to answer our 3 questions, those are scariest moment.
And when you looked into your future, did you have hope or dread?
When did you get your license and did you get a car? Likewise, if you have any questions about reading recommendations or library life, please write to us at teentitletalk@gmail.com and we'll read a few of our listener responses next time.
Thanks for joining us for Teen Title Talk. This podcast is brought to you by the Derry Public Library and Derry-CAM, Derry Community Access Media, empowering independent voices. As always, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, Google Play, and Player FM. Just search for Teen Title Talk. Hit follow so you can hear the latest episode. Our theme was created and performed by Bandit Starling. Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.